Welcome to the training room brought to you by Lionel University. This is the podcast for us, the fitness professionals. Joining me as always is my co-host, Dr. Erin Nitschke. Dr. Erin, we get to talk some yoga today.
I know. I'm excited. I love yoga.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm kind of in and out of yoga and yoga classes over the years. I thought I'd start by asking you, do you have any personal experience with yoga? It sounds like you like it, but what is your experience with yoga?
Yeah. So I used to be a regular at classes in the city that I lived in before moving to where I am now. And I would go 3 times a week. But now I just do it on my own. I'm not great at it, but I do it. So that means I'm committed.
Yeah, for me, there's all kinds of different ways to approach fitness, and yoga is one of those ones that's humbling to me. I used to live in LA, and there was a time I took a course took a class at a place called Wanderlust, and there was probably 200, 150, 200 people in the class. It was a huge space that had a DJ on the stage doing the music, and then in some classes where they'll say something like, if you feel comfortable, you can come up into a headstand. And normally, maybe there's a person that does it. And I looked around, and most of the people in that room were doing it. I was not. So again, very humbling. But I always have found it to be a nice addition to a lot of the things that I do with my fitness. So yeah, I'm excited to get to talk a little bit more about yoga, and we've got the perfect person to speak about just that. Joining us today is the founder and CEO of YogaFit. She's an author, an entrepreneur, an educator, and a pioneer bringing yoga into the mainstream fitness industry. We have Beth Shaw. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Beth, we call ourselves the training room, and with any training session, it's nice to get a little bit of a warm up. So let's warm up our listeners by hearing a little bit about you. So if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. My name is Beth Shaw. I'm the founder of YogaFit Training Systems, and YogaFit is the world's largest yoga mind-body school. I started it in the mid-90s. I should back up a little bit and say that I've been practicing yoga since I was 6 years old. As a child, I suffered from horrible migraine headaches and somehow taught myself how to do guided imagery and yoga to cure those migraines at a young age, and it worked. I did a lot of yoga poses when I was young. I had no idea what they were. I'm a huge fan of anything fitness. I've been working out in gyms since age 15. And in college, I got into a pretty bad car accident. I went to some chiropractors. They turned me on to holistic nutrition. I started to do more stretching after my workouts. When I moved to Los Angeles after college, I started to go to classes. My first teacher was 93 years old, and she would sit on the desk and instruct from there without doing the poses. After practicing for a few years and going to all different types of classes and schools, I decided that I would start teaching, and I went to an in-residence teacher training, which was really all there were at the time. And I left with some stick figures on a piece of paper and a couple of notes in my notebook. So as I was teaching in health clubs in Los Angeles, I really discovered that more traditional forms of yoga didn't really work for cold rooms, a lot of new people all the time, a lot of distractions from outside in the gym. So I developed a style that we now call YogaFit. It seemed to be very popular. One of my students actually was my original investor. We incorporated in 1997. We did our first training in Fargo, North Dakota in 1997, and we've been growing ever since. We now have over 250 different educational programs. Our trauma-informed yoga is really big these days. We have many people on our team, not just myself, and the woman that created the Warriors program is a lieutenant military colonel as well as a psychologist. We also have a yoga therapy program and many specialty programs, including yoga for personal trainers, YogaFit Athlete, which is based upon one of my books. And we have everything from very fitness-oriented yoga to much more esoteric programs like Ayurveda, meditation, and really too many programs for me to list. Almost 30 years later, we're still training people all around the world.
That's incredible, Beth. And I'm curious because in the beginning, you had talked a little bit about what you suffered with as a child, and you didn't really know what you were doing at the time. So when did you learn what you were doing was actually yoga, or how did you fall into that?
I guess when I started taking more formal yoga, I really learned what it was. And the thing with yoga, like so many things, is it's an endless journey. We can keep learning. There's so many different there's like 8 limbs of yoga, but there's so many different aspects of the practice that don't even really involve the physical asana part. To me, it's a mindset. It's a mindset that in its best form encourages obviously flexibility physically, but also mentally, and a lot of resiliency. And most important, and I've been thinking a lot about this as I've made some major life changes as of late, it really focuses us to be present in the moment. And I think that's one of the best gifts that it can give us, along with the ability and opportunity to listen to your body and really listen to your body at a deep level so that you make choices that support your health and well being on a physical and mental platform.
I love that. I remember at one point I was doing a lot more yoga than most of the rest of my life. And it also coincided with a time when I was doing a lot more meditation because I think it was something I needed, was to just be a little bit more in touch with that, with everything, not just my body, but everything. And both practices served me quite well in doing just that. So question, you mentioned kind of yoga for personal trainers, yoga for athletes, a lot of different programs. And I love hearing that because when I started in fitness back in the 90s, and oftentimes yoga classes, people would just say, "Oh, that's good for stretching." And are you injured? Okay, just go take yoga. It's the easy thing to do. And naively, I probably bought into that. So it sounds like with a lot of the education that you have, you've solved maybe for some of that. Was that kind of an intention of yours, was to solve some of the problems or some of the issues associated with what people thought yoga was in the industry?
Yeah, that's an excellent question there. When we first started training, especially in certain states, yoga was like voodoo. I remember
Mm.
doing a training in North Carolina a very long time ago, and people were picketing the training with signs that yoga equals devil worship. There's that extreme. And then there's just, I'm not flexible. I can't do yoga, which is the same thing as saying, I'm too dirty to take a shower. So, the beautiful thing about yoga when it's practiced in the yoga fit style, and we really focus on no judgment, no expectation, no competition, listen to your body, go at your own pace, and breathe and feel and stay present in the moment. Uh, it, that being said, really can do yoga. I used to teach yoga at my grandmother's retirement home, and it was chair yoga. And you just do what you can do. The most important thing is consistency, like working out. It's really no different. But I can't imagine, and I love weight training. I really do. I can't imagine just engaging in any type of activity that is going to cause some repetitive use injuries over time or tighten up the body any more than the body already gets tight. As we age, everything just gets tighter and tighter, the fascia, the tendons, the ligaments, etc. Yoga really is the key to longevity. And I tell my students, we don't see pictures of really old bodybuilders, but you see a lot of pictures of yogis in their 90s and into their hundreds. So that says something.
It does. It's just like that instructor that you had that would talk you through the poses and in the 90s.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible. And I like how you phrased it as being a key to longevity. And it's interesting to me that there is that extreme of you experiencing people picketing, that it's
Well,
devil.
that was almost 30 years ago, and I certainly hope that has changed.
Yes, I would hope so as well. And I'm curious, what other misunderstandings have you seen about yoga and what ones still exist today?
I think perceptions also occur for people who, for example, take a class where there's a lot of Sanskrit used. At YogaFit, we have a level 4 training. It's 4 days. We go into the Bhagavad Gita, the more really esoteric aspects of the practice and the philosophy. But in a user friendly, inclusive style, I believe that dispels a lot of the myths that people have. Practicing yoga, for anyone who knows, is challenging enough without having to learn another language. So at YogaFit, we try to keep it simple for people so that this becomes a lifestyle and not just a hobby or a thing.
I can appreciate that because when I first was introduced to yoga, let's call it 25, 30 years ago, like I speak exercise science.
Yeah.
And then they're not saying any of those words in yoga or yoga training. So I think you're right. It was pretty foreign to me. So I'm curious in a lot of your education, whether it be the yoga for athletes or yoga for personal trainers, is that where you kind of start to blend both sides, both the, I guess, the Eastern and Western?
Yeah, we blend from the beginning, hence the word yoga fit. We blend, and we've got certain philosophical aspects that we encourage people to keep repeating while they're practicing or teaching. Again, letting go of judgment, expectation, competition, breathing and feeling, staying present in the moment. But also, we really adhere to all the exercise guidelines. A typical yoga fit class has a warm up phase, a work phase, and a cool down phase, modeling the traditional group exercise format and modeling everything we should do when we go in the gym, even if it's just when I'm lifting legs, for example, or anything else. I always do a warm up set or two. We have to prepare our bodies. We don't just get right into it. We don't do a headstand in the beginning of class. We make sure, following what we call Yoga Fit Spa principles, safety principles of alignment, that people are really following alignment properly so that they don't get injured. And when we apply those spa principles to any pose, it keeps people safe. And that's always been our first and foremost concern at YogaFit is safety first.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm wondering, Beth, because I hear you talking about how YogaFit started and where it is now and all of the programs that you have. When you had this idea of YogaFit, did you intend for it to become this empire, or I guess did you expect it to go the way that it has gone?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I had no expectations at all. I was just following my passion, following my heart, following what I believed to be a very kinesthetic, friendly approach to the practice. Um, so I never really looked too far out in the future. The gentleman who was our original investor was very into Tai Chi, and he would look at my logo that I had at the time because I was doing a cable TV show and some audiobooks and things before we really and some clothing before we really got started with the training. He was like, I see Yoga Fit representing mind body wellness worldwide. But I've never looked too far in the future because I'm so busy in the present moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I was curious about that just because yoga is so much about remaining present and focusing on where you're at in the moment. If you had this long-term vision or if it just organically grew because you were following your passion.
It really grew organically. And like any entrepreneur, I would like to say a few mistakes, if not many. Fortunately, I've made more good decisions than not. And also, I believe that the energy that is Yoga Fit really transcends myself personally as an individual. I feel like I'm just the shepherd of the movement, if you will. But again, we have 50 master trainers, we have doctors, we have physical therapists, respiratory therapists, psychologists, military people. I could go on and on. So they all contribute content. They write beautiful programs. We have over 250 different educational programs, some short form, some long form. We do most of our training these days live virtual. We have some pre-recorded programs as well, RYT 200 and the like. And we still do some in-person trainings and some conferences. But since COVID, that whole model has changed a lot.
It really has. Yeah. That's amazing.
So it sounds like your education is really accessible then. It sounds like there's the big ones, the small ones, the in-person, the online, so very accessible. And that kind of speaks to being a good business person and entrepreneur. Now, I don't know if you're a natural entrepreneur. I don't happen to think there's a lot of natural entrepreneurs. I'm not one of them. So when I have an entrepreneur in front of me, I love to ask questions about the business side of things.
Sure.
You've built a fitness education company. What are some of the big lessons that you learned over the years in taking education, which is a tough business already, and building it into what you built it into?
Oh, so many lessons. Some big ones. We had a studio initially when we started, closed it down after about 7 years. I really didn't want to be in the studio business, but that was like early 2000s. Now I probably would have continued with that as well, either as a license model, not a franchise, because we had a franchise deal. I won't name any names, but we had a franchise deal with a pretty sizable company that has a lot of go in the gym yourself kind of key card gyms. And it didn't work out well because they didn't choose the person to lead what was happening in the box. They just put the name on the outside. So I definitely wouldn't have done that deal. I would have probably gone into more product development to go along with our education. And sometimes you break rules, like investing money into a building that you don't own. That was always my rule, and I broke it once. It didn't work out well. So like I said, I've made my fair share of mistakes. And also, as you know, with most in fitness industry, there are a lot of people who try to replicate your model and your programming. And because we've trained over 250,000 people worldwide, there are a lot of people out there using our IP that we really don't have that much control over. Or you grow an individual as a trainer and then they go off and think that they could do this so easily on their own, and you can't enforce non-competes with 1099 people. I hope I'm not getting too personal, but I have found as an entrepreneur, one has to really practice the detachment that yoga teaches us, as well as just letting go.
Yeah.
And to follow up, you mentioned something about you wish you kind of looked at getting into products. For our listeners, can you explain why? And because it sounds like maybe you feel like you maybe missed the boat a little bit. I could be wrong, but if you could explain for our listeners what the benefit could possibly be of having products.
I think anytime you have an opportunity for ancillary products to go along with whatever you're offering, whether you're a trainer and you're selling supplements that you love and you believe in and that you take. One thing I have never done is endorsed anything that I don't personally truly believe in. We have a lot of affiliate partners at YogaFit, but they're all products that I either wear, take, etc. Many of you who practice yoga know finding the perfect mat is very difficult. Before there was a proliferation of yoga mats, maybe we should have had 5 different types of yoga mats for people. Accessories, things of that nature. The good news about yoga, and we have people running prison programs, people are doing yoga in prison. You don't really need any equipment. In fact, a lot of times when I travel internationally to do shows and present, I don't even take a yoga mat. And there's many times when I'm on the floor with no mat and it's all good. Yoga is not a very accessory laden activity, which is good news, bad news.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's an important point, is anytime you have the opportunity to develop some ancillary materials that are just yours or that support your philosophy or the way in which you deliver your education is important. So thank you for sharing that with us. I want to switch gears a little bit because many of our listeners are personal trainers, they're strength coaches, they're fitness managers, wellness professionals. And at one point you said that yoga is the key to longevity. So where do you see yoga fitting into today's health and fitness landscape, especially as it continues to change?
Like, for example, personal trainers to know the basics of yoga and yoga anatomy and implement those with your client, whether it's a simple chest expansion after doing chest and pecs, whether it's a forward fold after you're working your hamstrings. I have a great routine. I do every time I go to the gym. I don't leave it. It can take 5 to 7 minutes. Knees to chest, some lower spinal twists, some upside down pigeon poses to stretch the hips, bridge pose to stretch the hip flexors with or without a block underneath your tailbone. Just some really basic things that make a huge difference. I always do a headstand too. Against the wall, I don't have to, but I like to err on the side of caution. You can throw a little core in there while you're at it, but it really, even to implement 5 or 10 minutes at the end of a session with one of your clients, will leave them feeling not only energized, but also restored and refreshed and rejuvenated with some deep breathing techniques, maybe some visualization, maybe even replaying the workout that you just did in your mind, because we all know that provides benefits as well. Can be a huge game changer. And also, if you're doing assisted stretching with your client, it forms a tighter bond of trust. And it also shows your client that you truly care about their joints and their recovery. So we have a 4-day restorative yoga program at YogaFit where we use props, and you can stay in poses for longer periods of time utilizing the props. I can't tell you how many people will come in. I just closed my studio that I had in Fort Lauderdale because I've now moved to Traverse City, Michigan to be with my mother, who will be 90 in June. And she's had a couple of strokes, and I try to get her out walking every day and make sure she goes to yoga. And she actually taught at our studio in Hermosa Beach back in the day and worked for a company for 10 years. But just to see and going into this assisted living and seeing inevitably poor posture is a huge issue that plagues not just older people these days, but younger people. And we underemphasize the importance of posture as it relates to mood, the ability to take a deep breath, cognitive function, and so many things. So when we're thinking about yoga, it is truly not just for the body, and obviously also for mental health, but also to realign you in a way that you're going to feel better on every level. And again, I really love lifting weights, but to engage in an extended period of yoga and really get into all of your tight spots and just focus 100% of your energy and your intention and your attention on even the tight spots, instead of trying to push them away, we honor them, we embrace them, we accept what is, and we are engaged in a process that will create less pain in the body. And pain management is a big deal for a lot of people.
Beth, I've learned several lessons from group instructors and especially yoga instructors over the years. By the way, I can tell you've got like a great yoga voice for being in class and teaching. I've managed all kinds of gyms over the years, and I don't know how many trainers.
We probably
and I would have trainers
in Los Angeles at some point.
Maybe. I was only there for a year, but I was surprised at how many. I was in Santa Monica, and it seemed like there was 1,000 yoga studios. I don't know how they were paying the rent.
Yeah.
But they were doing well. But I would have trainers take yoga classes because I wanted them to listen to the cueing, because yoga instructors paint pictures with their words very well, because a lot of times people are in these poses and they can't look up at the instructor. They're busy trying to not fall down. So the instructors do such a good job of what I call, again, painting pictures with their words. I would have trainers do that. So that's one lesson I learned. Another lesson that I learned was there's a big opportunity for professionals working in the fitness field and especially in the health club field, because you get a captive audience. And I'm thinking of one instructor in particular. It was a male yoga instructor who was also a personal trainer. And I feel like 95% of his business came from the people taking his yoga classes. So that was a big eye-opening thing for me, because what it taught me was it doesn't matter if my bio's on the wall and it says, John's a great trainer. Because if they don't know me and they have this great relationship with this yoga instructor, they're much more likely to choose that person as their trainer because of that relationship and because they've already done some of this work together. So that was my long-winded way of getting to this question of the business opportunities that are available for health and fitness and wellness in the yoga space, not just as a standalone, but also as an add-on to what you already do. Can you speak on that a little bit? Because I truly think there's a lot of missed out opportunity from a lot of people who feel like they're just the trainer and they don't do that other stuff.
That's such a good point. And I just have come off of 2 years teaching 5-6 days a week at my studio. We had a lot of people, men in particular, who would come in for class and soon discovered they wanted private lessons because they felt they really had certain tight spots, areas that they wanted to work on. And I got a lot of private clients. My instructors got private clients as well. And then there were a lot of women who's, looking at, and I'm fairly muscular, at my physique, where they wanted to do personal training. And because they trusted me, I became their personal trainer, and I would take them to the gym and train them at the gym. And then I would also teach classes with yoga with weights, a lot of mat Pilates classes as well. When you're fluent in movement, you really have endless opportunities. And if you are, set in your intentions to really make a difference in people's lives, I believe people feel it, and then they want to work more and more with you. And that happens. It happens a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to touch a little bit on the education piece. And you have already mentioned that there's this the practice of yoga can help you, your mindfulness, and it's the posture, and it's all of these things. But what other skills or techniques can personal trainers learn just simply by engaging in yoga education? What are some other things that they can do to help sharpen what it is they already do?
Communication was just brought up. We have our level 2 training goes heavily into communication and how to communicate in an inclusive way that makes everyone feel successful. For example, we don't have people use I statements. You never hear a yoga fit instructor go, I want you to lift your arms in the air. No, I want you to do this. I want you to do that. Because the word yoga means union. And if we're looking for a unifying experience that melds the body and the mind, we also don't want to create separation between ourselves and our students. So language is key, also being able to cue in a variety of ways where people will get it, because some people are auditory learners, some people kinesthetic, and some people visual. Now, you're not going to be able to visually demonstrate everything all the time. So you might need to say the same thing 3 or 4 different ways for it to sink in and repetitively. In a warrior one, you're going to want to have those back toes turned towards the front toes. They're little things. And the more adept one becomes at experiencing the poses themselves, the better they become to communicate to people. I don't want to say what they should be feeling, because everybody's got a different body. Everybody's going to feel things differently, but what they could be feeling. So we really emphasize directing the attention into the body, because what this does is it helps people develop that muscle of witness consciousness to their body. That way they listen to their bodies, and injuries don't always happen at once. They happen over time. The whispers, they turn into screams if we don't listen to them. In fact, one of my books, Yoga Lean, we talk about lean consciousness as a way to bring the yoga witness consciousness into eating, so that you become more mindful of, you can look at food and know how it's going to affect you. It may sound a little out there, but it really works.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting.
All right. So I think I'm going to try to turn this into a 2-part question.
Okay.
Because if people have been listening and maybe they haven't tried yoga before, or they're thinking about getting back into it, it can get confusing out there because there's all kinds of different names for yoga, and it might be difficult to choose where to start. So if you're looking to start a practice, where would be a good place to start? So that's part 1. Part 2 is going to be, if I was looking into potentially becoming a yoga instructor myself, how do I go about choosing what's the best type of yoga for me to instruct?
Of course, I'm going to say YogaFit, because it's true. They can go to yogafit.com. I believe that we're offering all Lionel students a discount. I'm going to text somebody and get what that code is. And we have a 4-hour essentials class, so it's not a big commitment. It's 4 hours. I think it's something like $49. And it gives you an overview of some very basic things that are important for everyone who has a body to know. I love our Yoga for Personal Trainers program. We're about to launch it in the Philippines, actually, to 50 Gold's Gems. We have also our level 1 training, which focuses on teaching 75 different poses, and the communication is touched on as well, how to do transitions safely and effectively, how to keep your students safe. And then our level 2 training really gets into more communication, how to do a verbal adjustment, because we don't always want to, and in some places not allowed, to put your hands on students' bodies. In our level 3 training, we get into meditation and neurolinguistic NLP, neurolinguistic programming, as a communication method. Our level 4 training is a little bit more traditional, Sanskrit, Bhagavad Gita, and all of that chanting and on. We've got some great anatomy courses as well.
Very cool. And if I was just to get started in taking yoga, what's a good place to start?
I suggest to people, just go to different studios in your area or take some classes at the gym. The problem with really large classes sometimes is that you don't get the individual attention that you need. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can feel really lost. Just to keep shopping around, and just like test driving cars, you have to find what feels right to you.
I have a follow-up to that. Think about people that might live in more geographically isolated areas or that have maybe fewer opportunities available. Are there specific online resources or classes that you would point people to?
We've got a library of classes off of yogafit.com. It's our YogaFit Instructor Network program. Anybody can sign up. And we have a library of classes, and we're going to be doing live classes with me and a couple of other people. In a few weeks, we're going to start a soft summer launch and then get deeper into it as the winter months come back around. But yeah, off of yogafit.com, there are some classes you can take, as well as you can go to our YouTube channel, YogaFit's
Okay.
YouTube channel, and check that out. There's some free resources there as well.
Oh, well, they like to hear that. All right, so we warmed up. We've done quite a bit of talking, and thank you again, Beth. A lot of really great information covering not just yoga and yoga education, but the life of being an entrepreneur. We like to cool things down with just some of our key takeaways. So, Dr. Erin, I'll start with you. Any key takeaways from our conversation with Beth?
I think something that I already knew, but was beautifully reinforced here, is that yoga is for everybody. And it is like practice, something that you do consistently to see growth and achievement and improvement. But I also appreciate the reminder about the present, being present. And that's one thing I found when I practice yoga, is the stillness and the chaos. We live in a very loud world. We are getting pinged with notifications all the time, and we're being pulled in this direction and that direction. And it takes a lot of effort to remain still in that chaos and shut it out and just be you and be still for a moment. And I think it practices patience.
And especially for people who live in larger cities, having
Really.
recently moved to a much more rural area, I am reminded again of how much we as humans are affected by our environment. Now, I grew up in New York City. I lived in Los Angeles for a long time. I moved back to New York City, and then I moved to Fort Lauderdale. Now I'm basically living on a cherry farm in Michigan. And the space, the external space, is helping me create more internal space where I don't feel. I'm type A personality. Thank God for yoga. I would be an absolute disaster without it. But the external space has allowed me to have more internal space and not be on that constant entrepreneurial treadmill of ideas and opportunities and go. And that's how I'm hardwired. But for people who can't find a rural area or a park or something, just to be able to meditate for 20 minutes and shut the world out also makes a huge difference, and is really important for cognitive health and long-term sustainability of self.
I've had the pleasure of hosting, I don't know, several hundred podcast episodes over the years. And once in a while, someone says something and it makes me go, huh, I haven't thought of it that way. And today, when you mentioned that you don't see a lot of 100-year-old bodybuilders, but you'll see a lot of 90, 100-year-old yoga instructors or yogis, that kind of hit me. Because although I guess I knew that, I never really thought of it that way. And isn't part of the point of health and fitness and any sort of practice that you're taking on to take care of yourself and to take care of your body? And there is a difference between exercising for performance and exercising for taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
And that was my takeaway, is that a good yoga practice can be a great way of just taking care of yourself and taking care of your longevity. So again, good one. You said one of those things today that I'll probably write down and I'll think of it, because it kind of hit me in a way that I'd never really thought before. So thank you for that.
Thank you for that. I think we can do both. Like I always say, when I'm 70, I'm going to try to do some bodybuilding contest, because I spent about 10 years in Los Angeles working out with a professional bodybuilder twice a week, training with her. And I believe that it really set a good foundation for, and again, I've been working out since 15, but it set a really good foundation for years to follow. And I think every couple of years or every half decade or so, one does need to get in the gym and create that muscle. I see my mom at 90 so skinny. I'm like, God, I wish I could get her to the gym and lift weights. And we've seen so many studies showing that people, even to their 70s and 80s, start lifting and they can get muscle on their body. And I do believe that muscle is one of those keys to longevity. And all the science we're seeing now, in particular, leg strength is tied to longevity. But we can't just work our legs without stretching our hamstrings, our hips, our quadriceps, our hip flexors, etc.
That's right. That's right. The run I went on last Saturday taught me just that because I was limping around for a couple of days after that. Beth, where can people connect with you and YogaFit? Where can they find you and all of the great education that you've got out there?
You can find us at yogafit.com, Inc. on Instagram and Facebook. We have many Facebook groups. You can find me personally at Beth Shaw Health off of Instagram. I also do a podcast called Make America Healthy. I've been on hiatus for a little while, but as I'm going to be releasing my 5th book, which will be on longevity this fall, I'm going to restart that podcast. And you can find me on LinkedIn, on Facebook. Just type in Beth Shaw Yoga and I'm bound to pop up somewhere.
Perfect, perfect. Listeners, look out for YogaFit. And if you truly have an interest in taking care of yourself and longevity and adding to what you can offer as a fitness business person, I think it's a good place to start is check out YogaFit. So thank you again, Beth, for being here with us. Thank you, Dr. Erin, for co-hosting with me again. Thanks to Lionel University. And join us next time for another great training session here on The Training Room.
Thank you. Namaste, everybody. Thank you so much.
Namaste.
Bye.